Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Ozcast. Really looking forward to this. I love anything to do with leadership. Anything to do with entrepreneurs, anything like that. And when you combine those two, and maybe when you add in teenagers, I'm even more interested. Paula Dunn is a teenage leadership strategist, and she joins us now. We'll get a bit more information from Paula as we welcome you. Paula, welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm very well, Mark. It's great to be on the show.
Oh, thank you. Now, how's it going over there in Sydney? Is everything sort of okay at the moment? I know we're going well here. Melbourne aren't going so well. How are you guys going?
Yeah, we're not too bad, although we do have this incident at some Thai restaurant, which looks like there's a bit of a franchise and coronavirus thing happening. But I've been staying indoors pretty much and only going out when I need to. And if I do go out, I wear a mask. So
oh, good. Well,
I'm being a good girl.
You're being a better girl than that Kerry Nash, that woman that stupid woman, which I had a rave about at the start of the program, where she's turned up at Bunnings and wanted to get in, and of course videotaped it, so they put it on Facebook. And now it turns out, though, get a load of this, Paula, she's a former employee.
Oh, well, there you go.
I mean, what is going on? You know, that is ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway, teenage leadership strategist. Tell us what that is.
Yes. Well, basically, I help teenagers create confidence to conquer life in their own way. So essentially, it's helping them understand their beliefs, their biases, and the behaviours in which culminate from those two things. And sometimes the behaviours that they have are, not so positively constructive for them, and in some instances can be quite toxic. And the worst case scenario is looking at teenage suicide. So I work with parents and educators to make sure that teens are very supported and they're understanding who they are. And how I do this is through creating a leadership mindset.
That's wonderful. And I know we spoke on the phone yesterday or earlier today. Well, I can't remember now. No, earlier today. And one of the questions I asked you was, what are the kids like these days compared to 20 years ago?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Well, the comparison I have is really for myself, and the reason why I've introduced leadership at such a young age as a teenager is because I remember back to those days where I was feeling uncertain about myself and comparing myself to everybody else and never thinking I was good enough, despite my achievements, and getting to a point in year 12 where I was suicidal and I nearly ended my life. And to have had the understanding of what my emotions were all about and the negative beliefs I had inside me and all of that, if I had known what that all meant and that it's part of, growing up and the hormones and everything that are playing around, maybe things would have been different.
Oh my! I'm flabbergasted. We didn't talk about that this morning. I can't believe. Well, I'm. This will sound weird, but I'm grateful that you've said that and that you've not owned up, that's not quite the right word either, but you've been honest enough to say that you actually felt like ending your life. If you don't mind me asking, and I know this wasn't the premise of the interview in the first place, why can you just unpack that? Why did it get to such a point where you wanted to do that?
Okay. Well, I come from a migrant family. So my parents came to Australia during the 1950s from Europe. So obviously I grew up with the beliefs that we had to assimilate. They came in a time where you had to fit in and belong and be part of the crowd. And so I grew up with those family beliefs, and plus also it was hard. It wasn't easy for them. And I grew up with the mantra of life wasn't meant to be easy and that money doesn't grow on trees. So obviously, it's a value-based thing. And so my parents did the best. And the fact that I must just say a preface here that I was born with a birth defect of my face. So I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, or a hair lip as people can coin it. So these days they're called special needs kids. So I grew up in a time where you know, you had to look the same as everyone else and be normal to fit in. And if you didn't, you got teased, you got bullied.
Of course.
So I got bullied relentlessly when I started primary school, name calling, being called fat lip and train tracks and, you know, whatnot, and being physically kicked in the playground by the boys at school. So, you know, it really took a lot to my confidence and self-esteem, and being, you know, and because of how I looked, I was put in categories like slow learners class because they thought I was not grasping the concept. But the teachers didn't realize in those days that it was because I was under tremendous anxiety and stress from the constant bullying, you know, and so of course I didn't take in any concepts. So by the time I got into high school, I was behind everyone and I was at the bottom of my classes, pretty much struggling to understand things. So it was a very steep learning curve for me when I got into high school, because, you know, my parents basically put me into a private all-girls Catholic school. So to give me that respite away from the bullying from the boys, and also to give me that opportunity to flourish.
I understand,
you know?
And after you started flourishing, how long did it take you to regain a level of confidence that you were able to really thrive?
Well, to be honest, I never had the confidence, but by year 10, I was in academic maths, English and science and religion.
Brilliant.
And by the time I was in year 12, I got in the top 10% of the state for New South Wales for biology and music, and I got into the University of Wollongong for biomedical science. So I got into my dream career of becoming a medical research scientist.
Oh, for heaven's sake. And that in turn gave you more confidence?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, tell me.
That's the kicker.
Isn't that weird?
It is weird.
Or is it weird? Maybe it's not.
No, it's normal. It's normal. And especially in girls and high-achieving girls in particular, we have this sense of what they call imposter syndrome, where we feel like even though we strive really well, you know, we're doing really well at school. Usually my CV is 15 pages long with all the stuff I've done, and having that understanding of never feeling that I'm good enough, you know, and being a female, we tend to like compare ourselves because we're highly critical of ourselves and of others around us. It's just in our innate nature, and it's just like looking to the side and going, well, you know, is it normal? And having that pressure as a female looking through the different milestones as we grow up, you know, when our friends are getting boyfriends, when our friends are settling down, you know, they're going to uni, what are they studying, how much are they earning, you know, how many kids are we going to have, you know, it just never stops. It never stops.
Wow. The imposter syndrome I can relate to. I have suffered that over a number of years, and, you know, I mean, you don't know my background here in Adelaide, but I worked at Channel 10 as a sports presenter for 25 years, and I worked at the ABC prior to that from the 80s for 15 odd years, and I've done breakfast radio and stuff like that. And am I the best? No. But am I the worst? No. But at the same time, there have been periods where I have felt like an imposter. It's actually quite common, isn't it?
Yes, it is very common. And the misconception is they think that it's just women, but men suffer from it too. They just display it in a different way.
Or hide it, better.
They hide it better.
Is that what you're saying?
They hide it better.
Yeah.
They hide it better, or they're very big at big noting themselves, you know, and being very what they call arrogant, you know, or overly confident in a way to mask it.
Yeah. And quite often, and this was certainly the case for me, Paula, but quite often you use comedy as well to mask it.
Yes. I use humor a lot as well.
Yeah.
And I'm quite optimistic.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting? You're optimistic, yet at the same time not totally confident.
Yeah.
We're complex, aren't we?
We are very complex creatures.
We really are.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because the misconception I had growing up, obviously the pressure of wanting to fit in, and my idea, because I was getting bullied for looking how I looked, I wanted to stop the bullying. I wanted to stop the pain. And I thought back then that the only way I had to stop the pain was to get into university and have a degree and be respected for my brain. That was my logic. That was my logic behind it. But in reality, that's not the case, because, you know, I've gone through corporate bullying, and it has nothing to do with how I look. It's based on my performance, you know, and achievement and accolades. So essentially, that kind of backfired.
Yeah, well, they're external, as you would know, and external things in the end never work, because we can never be good enough in everyone's eyes. For example, if we compare ourselves with a lot of people, there'll always be people who are taller than me, darker skinned than me, better looking than me, all of those things. I mean, of course, there are other people who aren't as tall or aren't as or don't have the skills that I've got, but you tend to just brush them aside and worry more about the people that you feel are better than you. But they're all external. The way to, you know, we don't probably have time to go into this, but I'd love to talk to you more about this. But the way to overcome that, it's got to be internal.
Exactly. And that's where I come in with helping teens create confidence through looking at their mindset and shifting that mindset, helping them maintain momentum during times of, you know, when they're feeling overwhelmed and they're feeling anxious and stressed and they don't know which way is up. Yeah. And, you know, and continuing that momentum and just keep going, because the hardest thing is always to start and take baby steps. Well,
and that's the perfect springboard for us to talk a little bit about that. So I was really intrigued by your article on Media Stable. For our listeners, in a very general sense, just explain what the article was about.
Oh, for me. Okay. Yeah. Well, basically, I had an experience, because obviously COVID-19 has taken a big hit on my business as well. So, you know, and so I approached a recruiter back in my old industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, and looking for work. And obviously I was upfront and honest about, you know, my business and the challenges that's facing, and obviously looking at the macroeconomics of how, you know, what the experts are forecasting for entrepreneurs. And so I thought, well, it makes logical sense. It might be good to go back and use my expertise and my experience back in my industry, especially, you know, now with COVID-19 and I work in medical research, it probably would help. And one of the things that they said to me was that this term moonlighting, that I couldn't moonlight. And first of all, I was thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, what does moonlighting mean? And then it came up to the idea about having a second job or another source of income. And then I was taken aback. So, and I'm thinking, surprisingly, where we're so globally connected, and we're trying to tell even our next generation that entrepreneurship is the new skill that everyone must learn to stay relevant. And you still have big corporates saying, no, this is unacceptable, you can't have a side gig. I mean, I've got friends that work in various industries that have side gigs, but they don't tell them. So it's either upfront, you either don't do it, or you conceal it.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty disappointing.
Yeah, without any doubt. So and I guess. And we've touched on this. One of the issues about getting a side gig or moonlighting is having the confidence, A, to be able to talk to your employee about that, or B, to actually go out and do it. And that's another area that you focus on, or one of the main areas, and that is offering, not so much offering, but helping young kids develop those leadership skills and those confidence skills. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I have a 5-step methodology that I use in everything that I do. So whether it's in coaching and mentoring or leadership programs, facilitated training. And so one of the things that I found in particular, which the challenges are, is obviously the self-doubt that we have and dealing with the unconscious biases of others. And so the 5-step methodology that I use is looking at confidence, so creating confidence, understanding our identity and who we are, and then I move on to looking at conscious inclusion, and that's looking at diversity and inclusion, so making sure that we're developing that sense of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So it's not just understanding ourselves, but others around us and their maps of the world, right? And then the third step is moving into that sense of growth mindset, which is important for us to grow and develop in such a connected and globalized world.
Yes.
But then the fourth thing that's critical in developing a great leadership mindset is congruence. And what I mean by congruence is walking the talk. You are, and this is the hardest of all of them to become, because, as we're in corporate, we have to have a certain persona. We have a persona at work, we have a persona at home, and we have a persona on social media.
Great point.
There's all different personas. So what I try and do is make sure that we align the personas, because the more alignment we have, the less stress and anxiety one becomes. Whether you become an entrepreneur, that is very important, because branding is who you are. It's the identity. And so in our brains, if I'm allowed to sort of say this, but we are very finely tuned. We do have a finely tuned bullshit meter in our brain.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah.
So we need to make sure that we're in alignment. And then the fifth one is collaboration, because, you can't do anything on your own and be successful. It's all about teamship, mateship, helping each other out, pulling each other up. And that's the 5 methodology that I use with the teams.
That's really, that last one, I mean, I'm interested in all of them, but that last one's an interesting one, because as you would know, being in the corporate world, that doesn't necessarily happen. It's more about people putting you down, playing games, trying to climb over you, metaphorically speaking, trying to get to the top, trying to make sure you don't get to the top. That is so tiring, Paula. That is so tiring.
Exhausting. It's exhausting because they haven't satisfied the previous 4 on that methodology wheel that I have. That's why there's no collaboration. You cannot collaborate and you cannot create a collaborative, cohesive workplace environment without satisfying the previous 4 pillars.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing about all of that is that if you're confident and you're confident in your own ability and you understand yourself, and perhaps if you've got all those other pillars in line, then you are going to, if you're a leader and you have people working with you or for you, whichever terminology you want to use, and you need 2 or 3 people, you need to delegate stuff. Instead of being jealous about that or worry that they're going to do it too well and then get your job, you've got to be confident in yourself to be able to do that and allow them to flourish and do what they need to do. Would you agree?
I agree. I don't want to be my belief is, as a leader and as I was in corporate, is that everybody has a different strength. And I have my own strengths, and I'm very strategic, I'm very big picture focused, and I'm really good at seeing 10 steps ahead of the team. So being able to understand the grand scheme of things and where we are and where we need to take everyone on a journey, I'm really great at motivating and influencing people. So that's my strength. But the other strength, I might have people on my team that are really good at reading data and deciphering spreadsheets. Well, why would I spend my time working on that when I could be doing something resourceful?
100%. You touched on you made a comment earlier that I was interested in, and I wanted to pick up on. Has it, over the last 4 or 5 months, I mean, obviously it's been difficult for everyone on the planet, but what about for those who are wanting to pivot and they either lost their job or they've been laid off for a while and they start thinking about perhaps becoming an entrepreneur? Are there more of those as a result of COVID?
I think, look, I haven't done the statistics or research on this, but I would strongly say that a lot of people are relooking at their options. Like, for example, I have some close friends who've been in, say, the geology space. So it's it was a very secure space. But come March, when we went into lockdown, within a day, 100 jobs were lost in Sydney. And there was no fallback. So if people had a side gig, like an option, then, for me, I like to hedge my bets. Yeah. So like a financial advisor, you go to see one and they'll say to you, you need to diversify your portfolio. Doesn't that make sense?
Of course it does, yeah. And the more options you've got, the more confidence you're going to have in life.
Absolutely. I mean, if I can say this, the universities, look at the Australian universities, they've hedged their bets onto one, 50% of international students come from China, their revenue. So
is that right?
I was looking at the statistics and I was quite horrified at the amount, how much compared to other Western countries take in influx of international students for revenue.
Wow.
And now we've gone belly up, and we're waiting for the government to to help support and sustain our tertiary institutions.
So if you're talking to a group of students now,
yes,
and obviously you would talk to them about a lot of things, but give us a snapshot on one key thing that you would say to them that you could leave them with.
Okay. Well, especially those that are currently in Year 12, because, could not imagine the stress that you're going through right now. With the uncertainty about, will I get into university? Will that course that I want to get into still be available next year? What are my options? I mean, I remember when I was at high school, they were saying, oh, you could go to TAFE, so it's like looking at your options. But the biggest thing my advice to you is to develop skills that are transferable.
Yes.
And what is transferable? It's the people. It's the soft skills. It's developing a leadership mindset. Even if you think you're not a leader, everybody has the capacity to be a leader. Yeah,
and that's really important. And that sort of gets back to what we were saying at the start about you, and that is that even though you might not feel confident, you're obviously doing things that people would look at and say you are confident. So in truth, you probably are on the outside, and these kids can be exactly the same. Hey.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like just the other day, I heard from a client of mine, one of her good friends committed suicide, and she was in Year 12, and she went to one of the most prestigious girls' schools in Sydney, private school, and my heart was broken.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and I could imagine the stress that she was under. I mean, we all feel. As teenagers, we feel guilty. Like if we've got parents that, they want us to follow in their footsteps, there's guilt there, because or if our parents have come from low socioeconomic working class and they're working 3 or 4 jobs and they're trying to give you a better life, then there's guilt there because you want to make them proud. And as a team, we want to make our parents proud. We want to do the right thing and we want to do the best we can. But, when we've got to look after overwhelmed, we become like a feral cat.
And we've got to look after ourselves. Paula,
exactly.
We're podcasting this as well as you know, so this goes all over the place. So if someone wants to get in contact with you, how do they do it?
Please jump onto my website. It's No Limits Consulting. .com.au.
No limits.
Limits with an S.
Yeah, consulting.com. .au. Okay, and all your details are there in terms of email and phone number and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Look, that is wonderful, Paula. I'd love to get you on again because there are so many different topics. I know we sort of whizzed through a number of them there, but there's some really interesting topics that we could really drill down on that I think would be of great value to so many, and not just young kids either. I mean, it doesn't really matter how.
Oh no, it all translates. It all translates.
It does. It does, absolutely. Paula, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Mark.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for being so brave and blowing me away in that first 2 minutes. My God. I think
okay.
Yeah, no. That was very open and honest of you, and I thank you very much for that. I wish you well, and I'll be in touch.
A pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula. Bye-bye.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.